Before we dive into heart-pounding dog stories, please subscribe to my channel. Many people watch videos without subscribing. Your one subscribe helps me create stories like this. And hit the bell icon for more stories like this. He was broken, bleeding, and labeled worthless. Sold at an auction for just $1. But when a 6-year-old girl walked up and handed over her last crumpled bill, no one expected what would happen next. In seconds, she changed his life and stunned everyone watching into absolute silence. It was just another Saturday in a small-town livestock auction. But near the far corner of the barn, barely noticed, sat a rusted cage. Inside it, a German Shepherd pressed against the bars. His fur matted, his face scarred, a gash visible on the bridge of his nose. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He just watched the people pass by, one after another, like he already knew no one was coming for him. The auctioneer barely raised his voice when it was the dog's turn. One lot, German Shepherd. No papers, no guarantees. The crowd murmured. A few people glanced over then looked away. Too old. Probably aggressive. Looks half dead. The bidding started and died at silence. Not a single hand was raised. The auctioneer sighed and was about to move on when a soft voice from the back of the barn said, "I want him." Heads turned. It wasn't a rancher. It wasn't a breeder. It was a little girl in a purple hoodie gripping a single crumpled dollar bill in her tiny hand. The barn fell quiet. The auctioneer squinted through the dusty light. "Did you say you want to buy him?" The little girl nodded, her face serious, her hand still holding up the dollar bill. Her name was Emma, just 6 years old. She had come with her father to watch the ponies, not expecting to fall in love with a dog behind bars. Her father stepped forward quickly, embarrassed. "She doesn't understand." But Emma didn't move. She looked straight at the auctioneer. "I have $1, she said. "Is that enough?" The crowd chuckled, unsure if it was pity or admiration stirring in their chests. The auctioneer, a gruff man who'd seen 100 throwaway dogs, scratched his beard. "Well," he said, looking around. "Anyone else want to bid?" Silence. Not one hand, not one offer. "All right, then," he shrugged. "Sold for $1. A soft ripple moved through the room, a strange hush replacing the usual shuffle of boots and murmurs. As Emma walked toward the cage, people stepped aside. No one stopped her. No one dared because deep down they all knew. They had walked past a life. And only she had seen something worth saving. Emma approached the cage slowly, her tiny boots crunching over the straw-covered floor. The dog inside didn't move. His ears stayed back, his eyes low. He'd learned not to hope. But Emma didn't flinch. She knelt down beside the rusted metal, her fingers curling around the bars. "Hi," she whispered. "I'm not going to hurt you." The German Shepherd turned his head just slightly, his tired eyes meeting hers, and then, hesitantly, like he was remembering how it happened, he leaned his scarred muzzle toward her hand. Her fingers touched his fur and for the first time in what felt like forever, he didn't brace for pain. He leaned closer. Emma pressed her forehead gently to the bars. The crowd watched in stunned silence. A few people turned away, blinking harder than usual. One woman whispered, "I've never seen anything like that." In that moment, Emma wasn't a little girl with $1. She was a lifeline. She reached into a space no one else had dared to enter. Not just the cage, but the dog's broken heart. And for the first time since he'd been left behind, the German Shepherd, bleeding, bruised, and beaten, closed his eyes, and exhaled. Emma's father knelt beside her, unsure what to say. He looked at the wounded dog, mud-caked fur, blood dried beneath one eye, a limp in his hind leg. "Sweetheart, we can't just take him. He needs help. Real help." Emma looked up at him, tears quietly welling in her eyes. "Then we have to help him," she said, her voice unwavering. "He has no one." Her father sighed, glancing back at the people still watching. Some had softened, others avoided his gaze. No one offered assistance. No one claimed the dog. The man who had once owned the shepherd had disappeared before the auction even began. That's when a woman stepped forward, a veterinarian who'd come to check on horses. She crouched down beside the dog and carefully examined him through the bars. "He's in bad shape," she said softly. "But he's got a fighting chance if he's treated now." Emma didn't hesitate. She reached up and handed her crumpled dollar to the woman. "Please save him," she whispered. That simple act, so small yet so mighty, ignited something in the room. The vet nodded. "Let's get him out." The cage door creaked open and the dog didn't resist. He limped forward toward Emma. They named him Shadow, because that's what Emma had given him. At the vet clinic, he underwent hours of evaluation. The gash on his muzzle was cleaned and stitched. His ribs showed signs of past fractures, healed without care. But the most surprising discovery came during a scan. The vet paused, her brow furrowing. "There's an old tattoo here," she said, gently lifting the fur on Shadow's inner leg. Faded, nearly invisible, but unmistakable. A military service ID. Shadow wasn't just any dog. He had once been a U.S. military working dog, a hero, a warrior. Records revealed he had served overseas in a search and rescue unit, believed to have been killed during an attack 3 years ago. Somehow, he'd survived and ended up back home, abandoned, sold for scrap. News spread quickly. A local reporter covered the story. "Dog sold for $1 was once a military hero." Messages began pouring in. But one message stood out from a man who had served in that same unit. The soldier injured, honorably discharged and certain of one thing. Shadow had once saved his life in battle. "That dog found me buried under rubble," the message read. "If he's still alive, I'm coming." And just like that, Emma's act of kindness became something much bigger. The day the soldier arrived was overcast, quiet. He stepped out of the car slowly, leaning on a cane, his leg braced with steel. His name was James Miller, and he had spent months in recovery after the explosion that had separated him from Shadow. Everyone thought the dog hadn't made it. But the moment James saw him lying on the porch beside Emma, his breath caught. "Shadow," he called softly. The German shepherd lifted his head, his ears twitched. And then, like something waking from a long dream, he stood. The limp was still there. The scars still marked his face. But he moved forward with purpose. One step, then two, before suddenly breaking into a slow run. He lunged into James's arms, tail wagging, eyes wide with emotion. The crowd that had gathered to witness it couldn't hold back their tears. Emma stood beside them, beaming. James knelt beside her. "You brought him home," he said, voice breaking. "You brought my partner back." He hugged her gently, his hand resting on Shadow's back. The dog nestled between them like he belonged to both. And in truth, he did. From forgotten to found, from discarded to honored, all because a little girl gave him one last chance. The photo of Emma handing over her crumpled dollar went viral within days. Headlines read, "Little girl buys hero dog for $1." And from the battlefield to the backyard, Shadow's journey home. Donations poured in to support rescue dogs and retired K9s. Animal shelters shared the story worldwide. But for Emma, none of that mattered. What mattered was that Shadow came back to her porch every afternoon, even after reuniting with James. They arranged visits, sharing time between the soldier who owed him his life and the girl who gave him a second one. At a local ceremony, Emma was presented with a special medal engraved with her name and Shadow's paw print. The mayor knelt beside her and whispered, "You reminded us what kindness looks like." And when asked why she chose Shadow, Emma simply replied, because nobody else did. That $1 didn't just buy a dog. It bought hope, healing, and a story the world would never forget. If you were in Emma's place, would you have spent your last dollar to save Shadow? Let me know your answer in the comment box below.